Hey everyone, it's Justine and welcome to another video tutorial. Today I'm creating a card for the Pretty Pink Posh new release blog hop, and I'm going to get started by creating a couple of backgrounds to work with. I'm using pine needles, Lucky Clover, and Mowed Lawn Distress inks, and I'm going to ink up various areas of this Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock cut into a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 size. I'm going to go in with my blending tool. I have one blending tool for each one of my Distress Oxide inks, and I'm going to go ahead and just blend these colors together, and I want to add different areas with the same color, if that makes sense, because I want to have a nice contrast between all of the different colors, mainly because I'm going to be doing some embossing over top and some die cutting, so I want to make sure I get a variety of the colors in there. And I think all of these greens are very different from each other, so I think this would be a really fun card to make. So this is my finished background, and I'm working on the Tim Holtz glass mat, so I'm able to just spray it with some water, and you could of course run a tag through it if you wanted to use up all of that water with the color on it, or you could just wipe it up with a cloth, but it just makes for such easy cleanup. I'm going to take another white background now, and I'm going to be using Abandoned Coral, Candied Apple, and Festive Berries. So some of these new Distress Oxide colors that just were released. I'm going to use a piece of purple tape to protect my finger since I'm going to be working on a white surface later. So I want to make sure that I don't get any ink on my fingers. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same technique I did on the background for the green, where I'm just inking up various areas of the cardstock in different shades, and this time I'm using a sort of lighter red color for my poinsettias. Now that my backgrounds are both finished, I'm going to add this to the center of my mat, and I'm going to use my Distress sprayer to add water to the cardstock to let the Oxide inks react. You get a sort of chalky appearance that's going to look great. I'm going to use my heat tool here to dry off the panels because I'm going to do some heat embossing right away, and I just want to make sure that none of the embossing powder is going to stick onto the areas that are wet. So I'm going to go ahead now and add both of my card panels that I just created to my Misty stamping tool. I'm going to add 2 stamp sets from the Pretty Pink Posh new release. They're called Elegant Holly and Poinsettia. And I wanted to use both of these stamp sets because they coordinate so well with each other, and I believe that the elements from each of these stamp sets will work so nicely to almost make it a complete set, as if it all came together in one package. So I'm going to lay down all of the poinsettia pieces onto the red panel and all of the leaves and fauna onto the green panel. Now, in order to save some time, I am going to stamp them all at the same time, and that's what the fun part is about the Misty. So I've gone ahead and I've arranged everything on here. I'm going to pick them up with my Misty stamping tool door, push down, and then I'm going to ink everything up with some VersaMark ink to get ready for that embossing. So I'm just providing a very clean layer of the VersaMark ink onto my stamps here, making sure that they're nice and saturated. I'm going to push down as hard as I can. Some of these stamps are really close together, so if I notice that none of the stamps have stamped properly, it's probably because they're too close together. So I can just go ahead, ink up once again, and then stamp again onto my sheet of paper. That's the nice part about using the Misty stamping tool. So I'm going to put these both onto a piece of computer paper here, just a scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to add my embossing powder on top. I'm going to be using some Brutus Monroe Alabaster white embossing powder, and I'm going to spread this over my background here, and everything should be dry at this point. I tested it earlier, just added some embossing powder before I stamped on it to make sure that nothing would stick, and so it's good to go. I'm going to set these off to the side to be heat embossed in a moment once I finish putting the embossing powder on top of my red panel. Now, as I'm heating this up, I also wanted to mention that I did go in with a block and a stamp, and I stamped a bunch of extra berries onto my red background to be cut out, because the Elegant Holly stamp, because I've stamped it on here on this green background, the berries are now green on here, obviously. So I wanted to make sure that I had enough red berries here to make it look realistic and to make it super easy. If I would have gone in and colored these with colored pencils or with paints or whatever, it probably would have taken a lot longer than doing this sort of blended background, and you get similar results and also really pretty results. going to now take the coordinating dies and cut out all of these shapes. The dies are super easy to line up and really are great for die cutting. So I love the coordinating dies from Pretty Pink Posh. Now that I've cut them all out, I'm ready to get going on creating my card. So I have all of the pieces here, and I'm going to go ahead and lay them all down on my card and rearrange them until I'm satisfied. I want the flowers obviously to be the focal point, but I wanted to add a little bit more green with that centerpiece of the Elegant Holly stamp set. As you can see, I've added those red berries to the front, which I think look great, and I'm just going to go ahead and fidget with all of the leaves that I could add to each one of these flowers by placing them behind. When I go ahead and glue these down, I tended to use a combination of liquid glue as well as 3D foam tape in order to make sure I get a nice elevated look. And I just kept everything on the page exactly the way I had it, added my 3D elements first, then went in with the plain liquid glue to slip all of the leaves underneath. Now, despite this being a very busy card and far more busy than the cards that I usually create, I felt that when I was finished gluing it needed a little extra something. So I went in with a Nuvo Sparkle glitter pen, and I went ahead and added some glitter onto my flowers. So I'm going to hold it up to the light so you can see exactly what kind of effect it has on it. So I find when you look at it straight on, you don't notice the glitter at all, but the moment it sends up to the light, you get a ton of glitter on your page. So you can see how much it shines and reflects in the light. The next thing I wanted to do was add some sequins. So I grabbed one of the new packs of sequins called Berry Bright Confetti Mix from Pretty Pink Posh, and I went ahead and added some Tombow Mono liquid adhesive to my card here, and I'm going to go ahead and add the sequins using a pick-me-up tool. I find this the easiest way to personally apply sequins, but that's just my opinion. I'm going to go in now with the Season's Greetings stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that using some VersaFine black onyx ink. I stamped it a couple of times because I wasn't sure if I was getting it quite straight on my cardstock, and I'm just going to add this small sentiment to the front of my card after I cut it down into a rectangular shape. I was having a little trouble finding a place where it wasn't going to take away from the card because there were so many busy elements on it, but I did manage on settling quite far down into the bottom right-hand corner. The last part here was just finally getting this put onto a card base rather. So I just grabbed my panel here, added some liquid glue to the back of it, and added it to an A2 size card that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 when it's all finished. I hope you enjoyed today's card, and don't forget to check out the blog hop over on my blog. I have a link in the video description below. You have a chance to win some gift certificates as well as some fun prizes, so be sure to check that out, both day 1 and day 2, for lots of holiday inspiration using Pretty Pink Posh products. All the supplies are listed and available in the video description below if you're interested in checking that out. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. I have a suggested video here if you want to continue watching more Christmas videos, or if you want to subscribe to my channel, you can go ahead and hit that button now. Thanks for watching. Bye!